Today on the official Marvel podcast, Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Versity writers Jordan Morris and Joe Kelly share what adventures are in store for the younger members of the Spider-Man family.
There's so many great spider heroes, and if you do already love these characters, I mean, what comics reader doesn't love a team-up? It's really fun to see them come together.
Plus, we'll get into the history of Ghost Spider, aka Gwen Stacy.
And we'll hear from Dan Slott on some of the more obscure and hilarious spider variants.
Some spiders have different powers. Some have organic web shooters. Some have different forms of spider sense. Some grow extra limbs. His power includes magically creating out of thin air golden sponge cakes.
I'm Preeti Chibber.
I'm Sade Spence.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
Preeti, do you have a favorite spider character?
Let's see. Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Silk, Spider-Girl. I mean, I could go on.
And those are all great answers. I'm also a fan of Spider-Woman, Araña, Spider-Boy, and lucky for us, they're all featured in Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Versity. We actually got a chance to hear from writers Jordan Morris and Joe Kelly on what readers can expect from this new release. Take a listen. I'm joined by writers Jordan Morris and Joe Kelly. Thank you so much for chatting with us. Can you introduce yourselves to our listeners and tell them what you do?
Sure. My name is Joe Kelly. I'm the current writer of The Amazing Spider-Man.
And hi, I am Jordan Morris, and I am a writer of a bunch of different kinds of stuff, but most importantly, comics.
Joe, you've been involved in so many creative collaborations in comics, and now you and Jordan are working together to write Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Versity. Can you speak about what the collaborative process means to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, comics were a very natural fit for me. And then that's really where I cut my teeth as a writer. So the collaboration part of it is so much fun for me. With collaborators, you get, oh, that's a cool idea. Or you get pages back from your artists. Oh, fun. What was in my brain looks amazing. You know, that sort of stuff. So I love it.
Yeah. And Jordan, can you tell us about your love of the Spider-Man fandom? Where is it at?
Yeah, absolutely. How long do we have? I've been reading Spider-Man since I could read. I was a kid of the kind of late 80s, early 90s, so a lot of clone stuff, a lot of Spidey getting cloned. So I kind of learned about Spidey through those great comics, and I've been a reader ever since. It is so unbelievably cool to be writing a story with Joe in the Spidey world.
That must feel so amazing. Tell us about Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Versity. What is the basic premise of the story?
So basically a really cool / insane thing that's happening in the pages of ASM right now is that Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, he has kind of been absolved of his sins and he's trying to be a hero for the first time. And that's manifesting itself in many ways, including for a while, he was Spider-Man. While Spidey was having a galactic adventure with all kinds of alien weirdos, Norman was just in the streets, in the reds and blues, being Spider-Man.
Quite a journey for the man who was the original Green Goblin.
Let me interject for a moment and talk about how badly he did as Spider-Man. Norman did. He tried really hard to be a Spider-Man, and he was not asked to do so. I mean, this was something that was sort of ego-driven. It was not like a plan that Peter had put in place, because even though he's been absolved of his sins, he's still Norman Osborn. You know, he's still got a massive ego. He's still quick to anger. And he has a run-in with the spiders, the young spiders, because they're like, we know you're not Peter Parker. You should not be putting people in the hospital wearing the Spider-Man outfit. Like, whoever you are, knock it off. And they have a big throwdown. It doesn't go well because Norman he's got such a hair trigger to anger, even though he's got the best intentions. We've seen some flashbacks of Peter and what a loving household he grew up in. Norman did not have that. Norman really has a lot of trauma that doesn't excuse his behavior as a goblin, but it starts to explain some of it. And it followed him even after the sins were gone. So he learned a lot about himself going up against those kids. One thing he learned was that he easily could have taken them out just because he's had an entire career fighting spiders. And the other was that it broke him, I think, a little bit. I think realizing, like, I am not the person that Peter is on any level really shook him. And he wants to fix that.
Yeah, I think that In his fight with the other spiders, I think Norman saw that, like, these heroes are powerful. Like, they're really powerful. But also, they fly at their problems like spider heroes tend to do, which is kind of chaotic, kind of improvised. That's a lot of what Pete does. It's like improvising on the fly and kind of fighting from the gut. And I think what Norman sees is that if these heroes were organized, they could be the Avengers. They could be the X-Men. And I think what he wants is to use his like vast resources to turn them into a team. He feels like they're not living up to their potential because they are so improvised and fight from the gut. And so what he's done is he's set up this kind of training academy in a kind of incomplete building on the Empire State University campus. And he said, I will make you a training camp to be the best you can be. So he is putting them through all of these trials, some of them ethically questionable. Goblin's gonna goblin.
Yeah.
And he is doing what he feels is best for them, which is giving them all this training, all of these resources to try and be a team and not just like a crew that comes together when there's a catastrophe.
And zeroing in a little bit more on Norman Osborn and his redemption arc, do you want readers to empathize with him, or should we be wary? How's that going down?
I think certainly everybody's got the question, like, when's he going to go bad? When's he going to go bad? And it's like, well, what if we play with that tension for a little while and see how valuable he really can be? Norman has a lot to offer, but it's like on the other side of the spectrum, right? It's the obsessive nature of who he is. And I'm going to drill down and solve every problem, which Pete wants to do too. But Pete's also a little bit scatterbrained, a little ADHD. Norman has like singular focus. And so those two guys sort of approaching the same problems becomes interesting, certainly to me. And this weird kind of father-son relationship that shows up between them. They have a huge history together. So it's cool to see that evolve over time with the shadow of the goblin looming over it all. So yes to both.
And without spoilers, what kind of obstacles might the young spiders meet along the way?
There's a lot of obstacles. I have a deep love for the deep bench Spidey villains, the guys with kind of weird outfits and powers that don't quite make sense. And in addition to a really sinister big bad, I think it'll be fun to bring in some of those other Spidey villains who aren't quite Norman. They're not quite Doc Ock, but we've got an A-lister for you, but also some of the fun weirdos from the Spidey bench are going to show up.
Yeah, and then also these are kids. And I think just seeing that dynamic, and especially the way Jordan is handling them, like, is very fun and becomes an obstacle of its own. You know, try to get some teenagers and a couple of 10-year-olds and a couple of 20-year-olds to like agree on the same thing. It's going to be tough.
And do each of you have any favorite character changes or journeys that are actually happening as part of this series?
Yeah, I am a big fan of Cindy Moon, Silk, and I'm so glad she's part of this story because she's awesome and she's funny. And something fun I think we're doing with her is Cindy is getting to have her freshman year. So she is kind of going full freshman year and kind of, having the fun dorm experience she never had. I'm excited for folks to see freshman year Cindy.
Yeah, and I'm always a fan. I mean, this Gwen is so fun, and having her integrated into the Marvel Universe, as we have the 616, as we understand it, right, has been a really cool opportunity. I mean, it's anytime her and Norman are together, it's sort of like automatic electricity because of his history that she doesn't share, right? She's aware of it, but doesn't share that history. So it creates this really sort of fascinating tension that even when they're not talking about it, it just kind of hangs there. So to see where that's going to sort of lead us and lead those two characters, I think is really pretty great. So I think that's really cool and interesting, and looking forward to seeing where that goes. And then just the little kids. I think Spider-Boy and Spider-Girl are so funny.
When you're that age, there is something really thrilling about hanging with, air quotes, big kids.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was that age and I would get to hang out with someone's like big brother or big sister, and it's just like, oh, I'm a big kid. So I think we're having a lot of fun with that kind of inherent comedy of them just geeking out because they get to like fight alongside these awesome heroes who they totally look up to. I think there's something really fun about that.
Yeah, it all sounds so good. And would you say there's anything else that readers should be aware of before they dive into the series themselves?
Yeah, I wanna make some time to shout out Perry Perez, who is drawing the book. His art is so awesome. I had this awesome email exchange with him when we started the project, where he basically said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm a jujitsu master. I think he is literally a jujitsu master. And he is like, I've got some ideas for the fight scenes. So feel free to leave those panel descriptions a little bit vague. And if you've ever seen his fight scenes, they're awesome. And so being a fan of his and wanting him to be able to cook, basically. What I'm trying to do when I'm writing the scripts is to, not concentrate on the choreography of the fighting so much as kind of the emotion and what's going on. So kind of talking about how people are feeling in the moment, and then kind of let him just cook with all these awesome jump kicks and judo holds and stuff like that. So yeah, I can't wait for people to see the action in this book. It's so rad.
Yeah, awesome. And also, what was the creative process for you two working together? And what was most fun about that process?
Well, I mean, we started talking and sort of, you can tell just from his enthusiasm right away that it was like, oh yeah, no, he is very into it. He loves these characters, had great takes on everybody. I basically was like, here's the table that I set. Now you go cook, right? I mean, that's essentially what we've been doing. And he's been handing in scripts that have just been amazing. And I get to sit back and go, excellent script. And he gets to be, super genius. It's great.
And what are you both most excited for fans to discover when they read Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Versity?
I hope that if you are somebody who just reads ASM, then you get to know these other awesome characters, Spider-Boy, Spider-Girl, Cindy Moon. Yeah, there's so many great spider heroes. And I think that because this has Amazing Spider-Man on the cover, hopefully folks who that's their main book will get to meet all these other cool characters. And Pete will be popping up. We've got a fun device for Pete to pop in. And if you do already love these characters, I mean, I love a team up. What comics reader doesn't love a team up? It's really fun to see them come together. And I hope that fans of the extended Spider family and people who just read ASM can all have a lot of fun with this book.
And Joe, anything most excited for fans to discover?
Since the beginning of my run, I've been really psyched for people to track Norman. And so this is the next chapter for Norman's development. So in addition to everything that Jordan just said, where I love all the young spiders too, but getting to see this next chapter, I think especially if somebody's like, wait, what do you mean he's not the Green Goblin? If they've been out of the loop, to get to sort of see this moment, I think is I think it'll be really fun for people. I'm excited because he's certainly still in ASM. We have a lot happening at the same time. So he's not appearing that often, but he's obviously key to the book and key to the cast. So sort of when he's back and forth, it'll be great to have that context of what happened while he was there and what did he learn and what did he experience and how does that inform his relationship with Peter. So I'm psyched for it all. And the art, it really looks great.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to see it.
Oh, awesome. And how might Spider-Versity lead into the upcoming Amazing Spider-Man 1000?
1000 is kind of a celebration of Spider-Man in so many ways. It's not anything official. We've never put an umbrella over it, all of this is the road to 1000. But, in a way it is. It just sort of feels big swings, big movements, characters that you love, getting to sort of spotlight them. It's all sort of in service to this crazy milestone that we're hitting in September. So it's, I would say it's of a piece, but I couldn't give you a specific, connection.
Well, I tried.
You have to try. You have to
try. Well done.
Thank you. Well, thank you both so much for your time today and being so generous with what you shared.
Yeah, thanks. It's been such a fun chat.
Thank you.
And while we're on the subject of spiders, we thought we'd talk about Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's first love who tragically died at the hands of the Green Goblin.
Whoa, hold up. That's the wrong Gwen Stacy. You're describing the Gwen Stacy of Earth 616, what we think of as Marvel Comics' main universe. But of course, Earth 616 exists within a vast multiverse of alternate worlds. And the Gwen Stacy we're talking about today is the Gwen from Earth 65, the universe when Gwen becomes a spider-themed superhero instead of Peter Parker.
I totally knew that. I was just testing you.
Okay.
All right, so let's start over. Gwen Stacy is a sassy, rebellious teen being raised in Queens, Earth 65 Queens, by widowed single dad Captain George Stacy of the New York Police Department. The New York of Earth 65, that is.
I think we've made the Earth 65 thing clear now.
I'm just making sure. Gwen is best buds with her nerdy neighbor, Peter Parker, and her Nepo baby classmate, Harry Osborn. And this girl has hobbies. She is both a classically trained ballerina and the drummer in a rock band, the Mary Janes, which she formed with her friends MJ, Betty, and Glory. And then she gets bitten by a radioactive spider.
This chemically enhanced spider bite gives Gwen increased speed, agility, and super strength. She can lift like 10 tons.
She also has the ability to cling to walls and a sixth sense that warns her of impending danger. These new powers allow Gwen to add yet another item on her resume, fighting crime as the masked hero Spider-Woman.
New York's new resident superhero quickly makes a name for herself, ridding the streets of nuisances like the Bodega Bandit and taking on decidedly more formidable villains like the Rhino.
Her work impresses retired superhero Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, enough that Miss Van Dyne gifts Spider-Woman with a pair of wrist-mounted web shooters.
In fact, Spider-Gwen might have gone on to have an illustrious career as a crime fighter, if not for Peter Parker.
See, Peter sort of idol worships Spider-Woman. He has no idea, of course, that she's actually his friend Gwen, and he's inspired to be a superpowered hero just like her. So he ingests an untested chemical concoction that he believes will give him super strength. And it does.
Unfortunately, it also turns him into a giant lizard who quickly loses his mind and goes on a rampage. The lizard attacks the high school prom, prompting Gwen to switch into her Spider-Woman persona and save the day.
From prom dress to supersuit. Iconic.
She gives the lizard a major beatdown, only to be shocked when the unconscious monster reverts back into her friend Peter and dies from his injuries.
It is honestly so tragic. I remember reading this and my heart just in my chest. Unfortunately, the local news brands Spider-Woman a killer vigilante, and the NYPD creates a special task force to hunt her down, a team led by none other than Captain George Stacy. As you might imagine, this made for some awkward moments around the Stacy house. Eventually, while in pursuit of the woman he doesn't realize is his own daughter, Captain Stacy finds himself outclassed in a face-to-face showdown with the Rhino. The Rhino looks as if he's just about to kill Captain Stacy, so of course, Spider-Woman swoops in and saves him.
But rather than express his gratitude, Captain Stacy then holds Spider-Woman at gunpoint and threatens her arrest. That's when Gwen pulls off her mask, revealing her identity to her dad. Captain Stacy feels he has no other choice. He lets her go. But he also quits the task force, and eventually the police department altogether.
Despite this, though, the anti-Spider-Woman task force continues, and now it's headed up by someone far worse. Abusive renegade cop Frank Castle, or as he's known in criminal circles, the Punisher. And Castle would rather put Spider-Woman in a grave than behind bars.
He's not the only one with a vendetta against the misunderstood hero. She's also being hunted by Earth 65's Captain America, Samantha Wilson.
And then there's Gwen's old buddy Harry Osborn, who blames Spider-Woman for Peter Parker's death and tries to get revenge by taking the same freaking lizard potion that Peter used. As you might guess, that doesn't go well.
Nope, it's rampage time again. Harry quickly goes bananas, starts calling himself the Green Goblin, and tries to kill Gwen. She manages to defeat him with the help of Captain America, though.
And like Captain Stacy, Captain America also lets Gwen go. Turns out Cap thought Spider-Woman was part of a terrorist organization called Silk, but Gwen has no idea what Silk even is.
Well, she knows what the fabric Silk is, just not the terrorist group of that name.
Right? Yes, important clarification. Anyway, the next big thing that happens for Gwen is her first trip beyond Earth 65. It starts with these ancient beings called the Inheritors, who are traipsing across the multiverse, eating the spider heroes from each world they come across. Ugh.
That is so gross.
So the spider folks band together to stop them, and Gwen is recruited into that spider army. And she gets a cool little bracelet from them that allows her to cross universes whenever she wants, which she does. A lot.
But after her multiverse hopping adventure, she returns home to good old 65 to look into Silk.
Not the fabric.
Nope, the terrorists. And she learns that Silk bioengineered the spider that gave her her powers after experimenting on some alien spiders they'd collected. Gwen is upset at being treated like a guinea pig, though.
Okay, quick aside to say that spiders and guinea pigs would be the most nightmarish combination.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gwen, she helps her Captain America take down Silk.
Then the multiversal spider people are in trouble again, and Gwen has to go on another epic team-up before returning home once more.
But remember, Spider-Woman is still a wanted fugitive in her world.
Right, Frank Castle is still on her trail. Get a life! And he's willing to go to great lengths to take her down. He even murders the Rhino and frames Gwen for the crime. And when the Punisher finally seems to have Gwen cornered, her dad is the one to step in and help her escape. The former Captain Stacy, however, is arrested and jailed for aiding and abetting a known fugitive.
So Gwen makes a big decision. She publicly reveals her identity and turns herself in to be jailed for a year. Captain America tries to get her out sooner, but having always felt guilty about Peter Parker's death, Gwen refuses and sticks out the sentence. When she gets out, it's more universe-hopping action against the Inheritors with her spider friends again. At one point during the adventure, Gwen appears to die.
She really just fell into another universe. That kind of thing happens to her way more often than you'd think.
And when she rejoins the battle, the other spider folks mistake her for a ghost. That's actually how she ends up with the name Ghost Spider.
After that, she tries to lead a normal, low-key life, but by this point, her rep has been utterly ruined. For every person who's grateful for Ghost Spider's crime fighting, there are 3 who bully her for it. So in order to find some semblance of a normal life, Gwen enrolls in college on Earth 616. She's already made friends with several of 616's spider heroes, including that world's version of Peter Parker, who happens to be working as a college professor at the time. So Gwen signs up for Parker's class and commutes between universes for school.
I guess that's what they mean by a multidimensional character.
But things get worse for Gwen every time she goes home, and eventually some jerks on Earth 65 threaten to kill her if she doesn't leave for good. So Gwen says a tearful goodbye to her father and exiles herself to Earth 616, though she eventually finds a way to bring her dad over to 616, where they now both live permanently.
Oh, wait, you're right. We are discussing the Gwen Stacy of Earth 616, because Ghost Spider is the Gwen Stacy of Earth 616 now.
Yes, but wait, stop. You're breaking my brain.
The Marvel Universe is home to a whole cast of unique spider people. Some call Earth 616 home, like Silk and Miles Morales, while others like Spider-Man 2099 and Spider-Ham come from across the multiverse. And in 2014, we saw all, and I mean all, of the spider variants collide in the fan-favorite comic book event, Spider-Verse.
The epic event sprang from the mind of writer Dan Slott, who had spent years writing Amazing Spider-Man and had already explored a similar story in the hit video game Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Today, we thought it'd be fun to invite Dan on the show to help our fellow official Marvel podcast host, Victoria Ying, break down some of the more obscure and downright ridiculous spider variants out there. Check it out.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to talk about these different variations of spider people.
Spider-sonas.
Yeah. So let's start off with Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is from a what-if world where Aunt May rushed to the science experiment where Peter got bit by the spider because Peter forgot his lunch. So Aunt May brought his sack lunch, and she was just in time where she got bit by the radioactive spider, and she becomes Spider-Man. So she's very good at scolding villains.
Is that her main tactic?
That's her power. She makes you feel like you've made a lot of life mistakes if you're a villain. And if you just listened to your aunt or uncle, you would have probably turned out better.
That would totally work on me, I will just say.
Same here. You know, you're worried about incurring the wrath of some heroes. With Spider-Man, you're incurring her disappointment.
That would definitely break my mother's heart. So thank you so much for that. Our next spider, we're going to talk about Spider-Mobile.
Spider-Mobile! In the real Marvel Universe, the 616, Spider-Man was hired to build a Spider-Mobile for a car company. And this storyline went on for a while. Because in the real universe, our universe, not 616, Marvel had a deal with the toy company. and they were going to sell this Spider-Mobile toy, and they wanted it to appear in the comics. The writers hated it because Spider-Man's a New Yorker. He shouldn't drive a car. So the minute they found out the deal was off, even though the Spider-Mobile had been in the comics for a while, the minute they didn't have to write it, Spider-Man lost control of it and drove it into the East River. The storyline abruptly ended.
A fitting end.
But people like me who read that story as kids, I thought the Spider-Mobile was the coolest thing in the world. And idiots like me, when we grow up and we get to be writers, we bring it back. And when I was working on the first Spider-Verse comic books, I loved the idea of a world like the Disney Pixar movie Cars, where all the cars were alive. And in that world, Spider-Mobile is alive in his alternate universe. And he can transform into a normal-looking car. So like whenever there's times of danger, in his world, he drives off, changes into Spider-Mobile, and comes back. And one of the greatest honors of my life writing Spider-Man was I named him Peter Parked Car. Terrible.
I love it.
And you find out in a later issue of Spider-Man, out of all the different parallel Spider-Mans from parallel universes, he's the best parallel Parker.
Okay. Amazing.
Don't encourage me.
So the next Spider-Sona I want to talk about is probably the most delicious, the Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man.
The Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man in the 70s, there were all these house ads in Marvel Comics where bad guys would be doing a crime and a Marvel hero would fly in, or in case of Spider-Man, swing in, and they would stop them by throwing golden sponge cakes or fruit pies at the villain, who would then stop to pick it up and be so entranced in eating this that someone like Spider-Man could then web them up. So one of the fun things we did working on the first Spider-Verse comics is we showed that that universe is canon and those adventures actually happened. And we learn in Spider-Boy issue 10 that one of his magic powers is he can produce a golden sponge cake from anywhere and throw it. Because Spider-Man doesn't have pockets.
No, he doesn't.
That's one of his superpowers is he can just, from thin air, he can just grab a golden sponge cake. And, you know, some spiders have different powers. Some have organic web shooters. Some have different forms of spider sense. Some grow extra limbs. His power includes magically creating out of thin air golden sponge cakes.
I thought that the Spider-Man had the best power, but this is pretty cool too. I think this might work even better than parental guilt.
Yes, food.
All right. So our next Spider-Sona, I would like to discuss Spinstress.
Spinstress came about, we thought it would be fun in a different alternate universe for a new Spider-Sona that was a world where fairy tale princesses could suddenly burst into song and have talking animal sidekicks. So we thought, what would be the spider princess? So I was way too busy working on the Spider-Man. I wanted to work on Spinstress so bad. But I was friends with David Hine, who is the co-creator of the Broadway show Come From Away. And I asked, like, how would you like to do this? And when you read the Spinstress stories, there are lyrics. She sings, someday, maybe some way on Broadway, there will be Spinstress the musical.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So our very last Spider-Sona is one I did not know existed because I had never really noticed the way that Spider-Man was spelled until recently.
Oh, I know who we're doing.
Yeah. Who is the unhyphenated Spider-Man?
That's Spider-Man, whose secret identity is Peter Palmer, is the Spider-Man of our Earth, but slightly shifted. He's 616, like B. When Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were doing Amazing Fantasy 15 and Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, there were errors. And there are multiple times where they spelled Spider-Man without the hyphen, where the spider on his back was painted blue instead of red, and where Stan goofed up his name and called him Peter Palmer, Palmer, instead of Peter Parker. So we created a universe of that error-prone Spider-Man, who is the Spider-Man of the issues that all had the errors in them. And he's very insistent that you say his name Spider-Man instead of Spider-Man. It is very, very silly. And he's colored in Ben-Day dots.
Oh, yeah. Like that old school printing technique you see in comics of that era. That's so cool.
So he looks, and he has the tiny original Ditko eyes, the really large webs under his arms, and the very bulbous spider on his chest that appears in the earliest issues of Spider-Man. So it really is, it's the, oops, we screwed up Spider-Man of the first 2 or 3 issues. It was the deepest pull for a Spider-Sona I have ever done.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about the strange corners of the Spider-Verse.
Thank you very much.
Ghost Spider, Silk, Spider-Boy, and Spider-Man are just some of the beloved characters in the Spider-Verse. It got us thinking about the superhero at the center of it all, Peter Parker, the OG Spider-Man. In Marvel Studios' Avengers Infinity War, Thanos is on a mission to collect all 6 Infinity Stones to complete his goal of snapping half of all life out of existence. After a failed battle with Thanos in New York City, Spider-Man swings in to help Iron Man. Tony doesn't want his protege to risk his life, but that won't stop Peter. In a tense moment, Spider-Man exemplifies why he's an MCU fan favorite, sporting both bravery and a sense of humor.
This isn't Coney Island, this isn't field trip. This is a one-way ticket. You hear me? Don't pretend you thought this through. I know you didn't. You could not have possibly thought this through.
You can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. Okay, that didn't really make sense, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Isn't he the best? Marvel Studios' Avengers Infinity War is streaming only on Disney+.
Next week on the official Marvel podcast, the cast of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again break down their favorite moments from Season 2. We'll hear from Kristen Ritter, Matthew Lillard, Deborah Ann Wool, and more.
Part of what I love about playing Karen Page is that she is you and me. She has no superpowers. She has no sort of special skills or anything. She's a regular person on the street who just cares enough and is willing to be brave enough and put herself in harm's way to do the right thing.
Until then, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you listen.
This episode of the official Marvel podcast was hosted by Sade Spence and me, Preeti Chibber.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores. Additional writing by Christopher Healy.
Brad Barton is our Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development, and our Production Manager is Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Zachary Goldberg.
Our theme music is by Ida Akbal.
Executive produced by Larissa Rosen.
Thanks for listening.